The Gladiator 3 movie begins years after the fall of Commodus. Rome is changing, but not all for the better. A new emperor rises, one who seeks to expand the empire beyond its limits, draining the people with endless wars. The spirit of Maximus still lives in the hearts of those who once saw him fight for freedom, but his memory has become more of a legend than reality. Amidst this, a young man raised in secrecy begins to hear whispers of his true bloodline. He carries the strength of Maximus and the desire for justice, though he does not yet know his destiny. The boy, Lucius, who once watched Maximus fight in the arena, has grown into a strong man. Haunted by visions of both Maximus and his cruel uncle Commodus, Lucius feels torn between two legacies. He is expected to serve Rome loyally as a nobleman, but he feels caged by politics and betrayal. His heart longs for freedom and truth, much like the gladiator he once idolized. The Senate sees him as a possible threat, but his mother, Lucilla, urges him to remain cautious. Rome is fragile, and enemies circle from within. As Lucius matures, he secretly trains with former gladiators who survived the arena. These men, though scarred, teach him the values Maximus once stood for: honor, resilience, and sacrifice. In these hidden lessons, Lucius begins to understand what true leadership means. Yet, he knows that the corruption running through the empire cannot be undone through words alone. A rebellion brews in the shadows, and Lucius finds himself drawn to it. His identity as heir to a lost legacy becomes harder to conceal. A ruthless general, Marcus Flavius, rises in power, manipulating the emperor for his own gain. Flavius views strength as domination and mercy as weakness. He sees Lucius's growing reputation as dangerous, sensing shades of Maximus in him. Determined to crush any spark of resistance, Flavius begins persecuting former gladiators, forcing them back into the arena or executing them in public. Lucius is horrified, realizing that Rome is sliding back into tyranny. He feels powerless, yet fate seems to be calling him toward a greater purpose. One night, Lucius dreams of Maximus, who speaks to him if from the afterlife. Maximus warns him that Rome will consume itself unless its people remember the cost of freedom. This vision shakes Lucius deeply, igniting a fire within him. He decides to act not just as a senator's son, but as a warrior. Secretly, he enters the gladiator schools under a false identity, determined to learn the way of the arena. The once privileged man now steps into the blood-soaked sands, embracing the same fate as his idol. Lucius's first fight as a gladiator is brutal and humbling. He is wounded, beaten, and nearly killed, but he survives. The crowd, unaware of his noble blood, begins to recognize his determination. Though inexperienced, he fights with courage and heart, earning respect from fellow fighters. Among them is a seasoned gladiator named Caius, who becomes his mentor. Caius once knew Maximus and immediately senses something familiar in Lucius. Slowly, Lucius earns trust, becoming part of this new brotherhood of warriors. Meanwhile, Lucilla learns of her son's reckless path. Torn between fear for his safety and pride in his courage, she struggles with whether to reveal his true heritage. She fears that if Flavius discovers Lucius's growing fame in the arena, he will kill him. Yet Lucilla also sees hope in her son, believing he could inspire Rome, as Maximus once did. Her heart breaks as she watches history repeat itself. Knowing the cost of honor in a corrupt world, she prays her son will survive where others fell. Lucius begins to rise in popularity as a gladiator. His victories are not born of brute strength, but of strategy and compassion. He spares defeated opponents when possible, winning the love of the crowd. Whispers of the spirit of Maximus spread through Rome, unsettling Flavius, the general, grows paranoid, convinced that rebellion will ignite from the sands of the arena. He plots to expose and destroy Lucius, but Lucius remains hidden behind his false identity. Still, every fight brings him closer to discovery. As Rome's tensions boil, Flavius demands larger games to distract the people. Thousands gather in the Coliseum, hungry for blood. Lucius is thrown into battles meant to kill him, facing impossible odds. Yet each victory makes him stronger and more symbolic to the people. His face, though disguised, begins to stir memories of Maximus among the older generation. The legend of the Gladiator returns, giving the citizens a reason to hope again. For the first time, Rome's heart beats with defiance. Caius warns Lucius that his path will lead to death unless he chooses wisely. He reminds him that Maximus fought not just for himself, but for Rome's freedom. Lucius begins to question his own motives. Is he fighting to honor Maximus, to free Rome, or to find his own identity? The arena teaches him that true strength is not in survival alone, but in sacrifice for others. He begins to lead his fellow gladiators, uniting them with courage. Rome unknowingly watches a new leader rise before their eyes. Flavius grows more desperate and cruel, ordering executions of innocent families accused of treason. He hopes fear will silence rebellion, but instead, anger swells in the streets. The people begin chanting for the gladiator who defies death, seeing him as a symbol of their struggles. Flavius knows he must end this threat publicly. He arranges for Lucius to face Rome's deadliest fighters in a grand spectacle, intending for him to be killed in front of all. The stage is set for Rome's fate. Before the games, Lucilla secretly visits Lucius in the gladiator cells. She finally reveals the truth of his lineage, that Maximus was his father's greatest friend, and his legacy lives within him. Shocked and emotional, Lucius feels both pride and a crushing burden. He realizes that he is not merely fighting as a man, but as the torchbearer of a legacy that once shook an empire. Lucilla begs him to survive, but Lucius knows survival may not be his destiny. He embraces his fate with courage. The games begin with thunderous applause. Lucius faces not only the fiercest gladiators, but also exotic beasts unleashed to ensure his death. The crowd roars, torn between fear and hope. Against all odds, Lucius fights with the spirit of Maximus, displaying unmatched bravery and cunning. His victories inspire chants of rebellion louder than ever before. Flavius watches with rage, realizing the people no longer fear him. The Colosseum becomes less a spectacle and more a revolution in motion. Enraged, Flavius enters the arena himself, determined to slay Lucius and prove his dominance. Armed with imperial armor and cruelty, he challenges Lucius before the eyes of Rome. The battle is brutal and bloody, testing Lucius to his limits. He's battered, nearly broken, but he remembers Maximus's words in his dreams. With one final act of strength, Lucius defeats Flavius, leaving him to die in the sand as the crowd erupts in thunderous freedom. Rome has witnessed the rebirth of its spirit. The emperor, humiliated and weakened without his general, flees Rome, leaving a vacuum of power. The Senate, emboldened by the people's uprising, begins to restore order and justice. Lucius, though victorious, refuses to take power for himself. He declares that Rome must be ruled by its people, not by tyrants. His humility stirs the hearts of citizens, echoing Maximus's final dream of freedom. The Colosseum, once a place of slavery, becomes a symbol of hope. The final scenes show Rome beginning to heal. Families return to their homes, laughter slowly returns to the streets, and the Senate rebuilds trust with the people. Yet, distant drums of war remind Rome that peace is never permanent. Lucius prepares to continue his fight not just in the arena, but in life. His journey has only begun, but he carries the spirit of Maximus wherever he goes. Gladiators. Legacy is not in one man, but in every soul that chooses freedom over fear. The story closes with Lucius standing in the Coliseum at dawn. The sands, still stained with blood, glow in the rising sun. He raises his hand to the sky, not in victory, but in remembrance of those who came before. The camera pans upward, revealing Rome's skyline, a city forever changed. The voice of Maximus echoes faintly. What we do in life echoes in eternity. Lucius walks away, a free man, leaving behind not just a legend, but a living hope for generations to come.